A landmark climate change and renewable energy bill is making its way up the ladder of the House of Representatives. One of the bill's aims to establish a cap-and-trade system to curb greenhouse gas emissions, similar to what already exists in Europe. Not everyone happy about that, and the debate on Capitol Hill is now heating up. Joining us, Margo Thorning, Senior VP and Chief Economist for the American Council for Capital Formation. She says cap and trade will kill jobs, raise energy prices, and have a minimal impact on the environment. Also weighing in, John Kadazeski. He's director of the American Carbon Registry, the first private voluntary greenhouse gas registry in the U.S. Margo, I'll start with you. What is the American Council for Capital Formation?
We're a group focused on promoting strong economic growth, job growth, and cost-effective regulation.
And who funds you?
We are funded by a broad range of industries from all sectors.
Industries. Okay, so I guess we know where you're coming from on this one.
Yeah, the problem with the wax...
Total self-interest, right?
Well, self-interest turns out to be the interest of everyone in general. We all want to see the U.S. economy recover from this slump. If we impose a bill like Waxman-Markey, energy prices will rise, the job growth will be slower, even when you take account of some new jobs in so-called green industries. Overall, economy will be slower. We need to look at the costs of this bill and the benefits. The Obama administration's own data, released in January, show that without China and India agreeing to sharp emission reductions, what we do here won't matter. By the end of the century, there will be no difference in global concentrations of GHGs without major emitters like China and India participating. So this bill will result in all pain and no gain for the environment.
Okay, John, so American Carbon Registry, is that a bunch of tree huggers who don't care about jobs?
No, American Carbon Registry is a group of companies that are seeking to take effective actions to reduce their emissions. They believe that the cap-and-trade system is good for the economy, is going to create new jobs, and is going to make industry more efficient.
And how so? I mean, Margo makes the case, you know, intuitively, it sounds like the kind of thing that might stifle job growth.
Cap-and-trade has worked in the past.
Where's it worked?
Acid rain in the United States.
Let me just jump in.
In the 90s.
No,
let me just jump in.
Europe.
No, please, let John speak. Go ahead, John.
In Europe last year, the result of the greenhouse gas trading system, the cap-and-trade system, which, by the way, is an American invention, reduced greenhouse gas emissions in Europe by 3% from 2007 to 2008.
The system that we put in place to curb SOx, NOx, and mercury back in the late 80s and 90s, we had the technology. We had scrubbers that we could put on our utilities to curb emissions. We don't have the technology to capture and store carbon from our coal-fired fleet. Half of all U.S. electricity comes from coal. We don't have carbon capture and storage, so it's a false analogy to say that because the system to curb SOx, NOx, and mercury worked, that this cap-and-trade system...
I would disagree with that, Margo. We do have the technology to reduce emissions.
We do. We have carbon sequestration, don't we, Margo?
We can only capture carbon and re-inject it in oil fields right now. We don't have the technology to add on.
And that's a very large
existing
number that could be put back into the ground.
Well,
if you look at most natural gas exploration today, the CO2 associated with natural gas recovery goes right into the atmosphere. That could easily be recovered, put back into the ground, increase the amount of oil that we get out of each oil well at the same time as we benefit the environment. It would produce great benefits.
That's acceptable. I'm all for capturing and storing it,
Margo, please.
but we don't have the technology.
Please, I'm asking, please, nicely. John, what about the coal-fired plants that Margo speaks of?
Coal-fired plants? Yeah. Coal happens to be one of the dirtier forms of electricity generation.
How do we get the carbon there? Margo says we can't do it.
Well, there's several things you can...
Respond to that point.
You can do things with coal plants. You can co-fire biofuels with coal plants and help achieve the initial reductions. You can also use offsets to displace emissions in other categories. If you look at the agriculture and forestry sectors in particular, there's opportunities for investment in improving our agriculture and our forest lands in the United States that will produce jobs and revenues for landowners in the U.S.
All of that requires substituting more expensive energy from non-fossil fuels for fossil fuels.
Right.
So
Margo and John, we need to leave it there because I do believe we have some news. Mark, it's just amazing when you think about pumping all this stuff into the ground. Everyone says that's a solution. what happens when it just explodes one day. Talk about unintended consequences. We're going to just walk around.
We might be asphyxiating a lot of worms.
And Scott Cohn, I believe we have some breaking news.